All right, let's talk about burdens. So obviously you need to track, and in some cases you need to calculate your burden for each job that you have, each contractor on assignment. Your burden is the aggregate cost on your labor, and you use that to calculate your gross profit. So Bilflo has come up with 3 different methods for tracking and even calculating your burden across different jobs. So let's start out with the most simple process here. We have the manual burden selected, and I'll go ahead and show you what that looks like inside of a job inside of Bilflo. So let's go ahead and start creating a job here. We have Sally Smith, who's a developer at Amazon, and here you can see the burden section, and we just have a box for an amount. So you can very easily put in this amount and it will come through from your ATS if you have an integration who supports the burden percentage. And this is the easiest way to track burdens across individual jobs. Let's talk about a different way that's a little bit more complex. For those of you who have multiple job types, but you're in the same state, really all of your state and federal taxes would stay the same, but your workers' comp rate would change depending on the job type. This is the case where you might want to use Bilflo's base burden plus workers' comp. So let me show you how that works. First of all, you set up a base burden, and that's really maybe your SUTA and your FUTA and Social Security, things like that. And you just add those numbers up and you come up with a base burden percentage. But then you know that your workers' comp rate can change. It might be a 0.5% up to, gosh, even 9%, depending on what that job type is and the workers' comp rate is. So we allow for a workers' comp library, which comprises of the workers' comp codes and workers' comp rates for those codes that have start dates and end dates and are state specific. So let's go ahead and let me show you how that works. So I'm going to assume that we have a base rate of 16%, and if the workers' comp rate is less than 1%, then we're going to end up using this minimum burden of 17%. But let's go and see how this works in a job. So we're going to have the same job here, Sally, who's a developer. And you can see here in the burden section, we have our base burden of 16%, the minimum burden is 17, and then we've added this section here for workers' comp code. So this allows you to select the workers' comp code and add it to the base rate. So if I choose an 8810, for example, that rate for that 8810 is less than 1%, therefore we're taking the 17%. But if we had another rate that was higher, like a 9420, then we're adding that percentage to the base rate and arriving at a larger burden rate here. So that is the second method of calculating a burden inside of Bilflo. But let's say that you have more complexity and maybe you're across multiple states. Well, what do you do then? Your base burden is not going to be the same because your state unemployment tax rate is going to be different across different states, and even different cities have their own taxable items that you might need to consider. So let's take a look at the third item here, which we call our burden builder. The burden builder works in conjunction with the workers' comp code library, and it allows for you to set up items across multiple states with start dates and end dates and tax amounts for each of those. The burden builder uses the job site address in order to determine which burden items are applicable to this job. So let me show you how that works. Let's go into a new contract job. We're going to do the same thing. We have an Amazon customer with Sally Smith, and again, she's a developer. And this time you can see here we have the job site address section. Let's select an address. And now you can see the burden section looks a little bit different. So we are actually pulling in the burden items from the burden builder library, and all of the items that match California, San Francisco, and in the United States are being pulled in And in addition to that, we have the workers' comp code. And you can see once that workers' comp code is selected, it adds that to the overall burden. So the burden builder is the most sophisticated method inside of Bilflo for not only tracking, but also calculating what your burden is going to be on each individual job based on the job site address. Hey, and there's one more thing I want to show you. We actually use the burden builder to help populate a GP calculator. So very easily, we can have your sales reps enter in the prospect's job site address and choose a workers' comp code. And then we can plug that burden into the GP calculator so that you can calculate your markup, your GP spread, and your gross margin percentage. Okay, that's it for now. I hope you found this video helpful on burden calculation inside of Bilflo. Feel free to check out our other videos as they might be helpful as well. And feel free to visit us at bilflo.com for more details.